Hey, this is Andy Kelly from PC Gamer, and in this video we're going to look at how we can trace the DNA of this to this. This is Obscure Games by famous devs. This first-person mech shooter is kind of off-brand for the studio that made it. Shattered Steel was the first game ever developed by Bioware. These days the studio is known for RPGs like Baldur's Gate, Dragon Age, and of course Mass Effect, but back in 1996 it released this. Set on a post-apocalyptic Earth where humanity is on the verge of extinction, its tagline is like something out of a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. In the future, you don't rebuild, you reload. The first-person combat and customizable mechs drew similarities to the Mech Warrior series, but the game was criticized for being shallow in comparison, with little complexity and a focus on brainless action. It seems Bioware took this criticism to heart. Its second game, released 3 years later, was Baldur's Gate, a deep RPG no one could ever accuse of being brainless. Next up we have a stylish 1994 platformer with some seriously impressive animation. Blackthorne was an early game by Blizzard. Nowadays Blizzard is known for the likes of Diablo, StarCraft and World of Warcraft, but dive into its back catalogue and you'll find a few interesting curios. This side-scrolling platformer features environmental puzzles, gun combat and smooth rotoscoped animation that still looks great today. Reminiscent of cinematic platformers like Flashback, which were very much in vogue in the mid to late 90s, Blackthorne was well received at the time, with critics praising its dark atmosphere, satisfying action, and the quality of its animation. This cutesy penguin platformer was released for the MSX back in 1986. Penguin Adventure was the first game Hideo Kojima ever worked on as a young designer at Konami. Today he's known for lavish cinematic games like Metal Gear Solid and, more recently, the superb and deeply weird Death Stranding. But before he became a household name, he was helping to bring the adventures of a penguin called Penta to life. Penta is on a mission to recover a golden apple and cure Penguette, a sickly penguin princess. Hardly the greatest story Kojima has ever worked on. But interestingly, Penguin Adventure features multiple endings, including one where Penguette dies. This may have inspired Kojima when he made Metal Gear Solid 11 years later, which has its own bad ending involving a character dying. Or it could just be a coincidence. Okay, FIFA is hardly an obscure game, but for the developer who ported the PC version, it's a bit of an oddity. FIFA International Soccer was the first FIFA game, and this version was developed by Creative Assembly. When you hear the name Creative Assembly, you probably think of the Total War series of grand strategy games or something like Alien Isolation. But when it was founded back in 1987, Creative Assembly earned its crust porting games from platforms like the ZX Spectrum and Amiga to PC. With a reputation for making quality ports, Creative Assembly was hired by EA in 1993 to create MS-DOS versions of its sports titles, including a new football game called FIFA. FIFA, of course, went on to become a worldwide phenomenon, with a reported 325 million copies sold as of 2021. This emergency services FPS from 2006 was the first game released by a very well-known developer. It's called Urban Chaos Riot Response, and it was developed by Rocksteady Studios. Your first encounter with Rocksteady was likely one of its Batman games, but 3 years before it released the magnificent Arkham Asylum, the studio developed this. In it you play as Nick Mason, a member of an elite squad of riot cops called T-Zero. Gangs have taken over an unnamed American city, and you've been sent in to deal with them, working alongside firefighters and paramedics. It had some neat ideas like deploying a riot shield to use as mobile cover, but unsurprisingly a game about cops rampaging around a city using lethal force to quell riots has not aged particularly well. This Ninja Gaiden-inspired platformer was developed by a team better known for popularizing the FPS genre. Shadow Knights was an early game by id Software. Before conquering the world with Doom, id had already shipped a dozen games including Wolfenstein 3D and the cult Commander Keen series. but Shadow Knights seems to have been lost in the mists of time. It's a pretty standard side-scrolling action game typical of the era with sword-based combat, throwing stars, and a Japanese theme. In a blog celebrating its 20th anniversary, co-founder Jean Romero noted that Shadow Knights was one of 11 games the studio made in a single year, each of which publisher Softdisk paid them $5,000 for. This is not an especially memorable game, but it's an interesting part of id's history nonetheless. And finally, we have an open world game that many consider to be a precursor to the GTA series. The Terminator was one of the earliest games developed by Bethesda. This studio's name has since become synonymous with open world RPGs like Fallout and The Elder Scrolls. But in 1991, before the first Elder Scrolls game was even released, Bethesda was bringing Hollywood's scariest mechanical killer to PCs. The Terminator was the first video game based on the Terminator movies and is set in a 6-square-mile recreation of central Los Angeles, an incredible technical achievement for the time. You can take to the streets as either Kyle Reese or the T-800, evading cops and stealing cars, which is where that GTA comparison comes in.